My special guest today is Reda Falih. Reda is the Chief Executive Officer of Aries. Welcome to the show, Reda.
Thanks, Andrew. Happy to be here.
Yeah, well, can you just give us your background real briefly? Like, how did you get in finance? You've got a lot of experience in the industry. Just tell us where you came from.
Yeah, sure. So I guess I'm definitely in finance by trade. My education is actually I was going to school to be a biomedical engineer, right? That's nowhere near finance, but I started off investing at a really young age, mainly just it's like stupid stuff like oh where's Apple gonna go? Gambling, nothing too crazy, and just being in the space for a while, I got really infatuated with Benjamin Graham's idea of value investing. I ran a blog for a while that talked about value investing. I worked for a little bit just as an event-driven investor, right? Trying to look for things that maybe the market hadn't looked at yet or things that were priced cheaply. I moved on. I had a crypto exchange at one point. And then at another point, I ran a data analytics company. If you're familiar, like with options flow or unusual options trades, we did that for a while. And now I run Aries, which is a trading platform available in about 130 countries. Our token is like commission free stocks and options, 130 countries.
Nice. That was great. So you've got all this experience across all these different areas of finance and data. Why Aries? Like, what is the problem that Aries is solving?
Okay, sure. With all that experience, by the way, that does not make me an expert at all. There's still way more to learn, and I think that when people talk about their experiences, it's like as if all their experiences have been good. No, it's like definitely not an expert by any means. The reason Aries started was I was an investor with not a whole lot of cash when I was getting started, and I would spend a lot of money on things like Yahoo Finance Premium, Finviz Premium, just stuff like that. And eventually, I was running this data company, and we had a couple thousand people. They would pay 60, $100 a month to access different. Oh, what is the largest options trade today, or what is the most unusual options trade today? And for me, I ended up coming across a statistic that was just about half of all retail investors will spend 5 to 10% of their account on extraneous data services. And if you think
Hmm.
about that, like at face value, that
Wow.
statistic doesn't make a lot of sense, right? But if you think about it really for a second, like 5 to 10% of that total account going towards just trying to level the playing field is crazy, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy, especially because I came from a background where I was like, it's really not the hardest thing in the world to build this data analytics software. There's a really low barrier to entry. And the way that I thought about it was like, eventually this data is going to be free. So might as well try to break that barrier. But then the question becomes, how do you make money? Right.
Hmm.
And the idea is like, okay, we give out this data for free, sort of try to democratize data. And then on the back end, of course, we're making money on the trading. So we're not completely commissioned free for really advanced asset classes like futures or futures options or indexes. So yeah, we're index free with stocks and options, but right, the idea is like making money on other asset classes.
Wow. What a horrific obstacle to overcome as a trader if you're spending 5 to 10% on just getting started. Like, how are you? That means to outperform the market, you've got to do what, 12 or 14 at a minimum
Yeah,
ROI?
so you have to beat the S&P 500 by like 50 basis points. In general, is a crazy hard thing to do, right? Because I would say for 99.5% of all people on the planet, you should just buy into the S&P 500. But the way that I see it is like if you look at the crypto space, there's all this innovation being made primarily because it's like anyone can build on like Ethereum or Solana or one of these other blockchains. We don't have that in the stock market. There's such a high barrier to entry, and I feel like we haven't gotten to the point where we're leveraging human capital correctly, and data is like that first step, right?
Hmm.
Like, of course, there's a lot of noise though, right? It's not like the more data you have, the more money you're going to make. You could look at a million lines of data and still lose money.
Right. I'm in this industry, and so I think about this a lot, like the cost of a Bloomberg terminal, which is what most professional investors use, is $2,000 a month or maybe more. And if you think about $24,000 a year expense to have the base competitive product, it makes sense that wow, that's crazy. That would mean what normal investor is investing more than 20 enough to justify that kind of data expense.
Yeah, it's not even just that, right? Like if you think about it, even if you have access to a Bloomberg terminal. So I remember the first time I got to mess with something like as advanced as a Bloomberg terminal, or like I think Reuters has their Thomson terminal or whatever. But you're like looking at the stuff, and most of it is not the most insane data in the world. It's not like there's anything special there, right? I think that was the thing that stood out to me the most. It's like you're paying $25,000 a year, but I still have to work, right? Like, I still have
Yeah.
to do something. Here's the way that I think about it is it's like if there's only a certain amount of people, I think it's like 200,000 people that pay for a Bloomberg terminal. And of those 200,000 people, like what are the chances that somebody's going to innovate in such a small sample size? Obviously, it's a lot higher if you just let everybody have that data. So eventually, I do think we're going to get to that point, and that's, if it's not Aries, it will definitely be another company that does it, and that's sort of the empowering thing to me.
I think it's going to be Aries. If you're following along at home, the website is tradearies.com. You can get on there and get started for free. You can see all these different asset classes that are available. And as Reda pointed out, his business model is to make a little bit of money off of advanced asset classes, but to give the data away for free. Can you talk a little bit about how you're growing the platform? Like, so you've got to do a lot of work to make things easy for your users. What kind of things are you building out in there that give these traders a chance to not have to beat the S&P by an extra
Yeah,
$24,000 a year?
I think naively when we got started, so because I have a background in software, right? That's what I did for a while. My co-founder, he was like he worked for 10 years at Canada's top bank as one of their lead developers. So it's like we were really cocky going into it, like, oh, we're gonna build this crazy cool software, we're gonna build all this data, and then you get into it and you realize like, damn, this is really hard, man. And you
Mhm.
release a product and people just, people are just not, they're not connecting with it. So for us, the way that we try to solve that problem is we have a Discord server that started off as just our beta customers, and about a
Mm,
thousand clients that we had in there that would just tell us like what was wrong about it. And eventually we expanded it, made it public, and we actually only build around user feedback now. So yeah,
mm,
we chime in here and there or we make tweaks, but the idea is there are competitors in this field that just try to give out the data and let people build on top of it, right? Like, or let like there's these terminals that have come out that it's like here's the data, you can set it up the way that you want to set it up. We're taking a different approach where customers will tell us like, oh, Reda, I want to be able to see the most unusual options trades, right? But I don't want to have to configure anything. So what we'll do is we'll take that suggestion and then we'll try to make it as simple as humanly possible, sort of take the Robinhood approach to modernizing it.
mm.
But yeah, that's sort of our, I guess, the key. That's has to our early success. That has been the key for sure, because I feel like had we not had that group of 1,000 customers, and had we not really taken to heart what they said about the product, we definitely would not be around today and growing as fast as we are. It's like, you know, I think that's been the key so far.
Fascinating. So yeah, I got on your website this morning, and the first thing I did was sign up for Discord, which I'm embarrassed to say today was the first day I got in there. But my experience was very different from any other software I've ever used because I'm trying to check out this app, and immediately I'm in like a discussion room where there's developers and there's all this stuff going on. I mean, for if you're hip to the way the world is operating on the cutting edge, you know about Discord and what's going on there in this feedback loop. But can you tell our users or our listeners rather a little bit more about like this process of getting that feedback? Like what's going on in Discord? How does that work?
Yeah, so I'll be honest. I got the idea from NFT discords. And I know that that's a crazy word to say right now, right? But so if you'll notice in a lot of these crypto communities, I've been in crypto for quite a while, so I kind of I'm a nerd when it comes to that stuff for sure. But in a lot of these crypto communities, the first thing that they'll do is set up this Discord channel where the token holders or whatever can talk with each other. And for a lot of these NFT projects, that's actually the only value that comes out of it. The fact that you hold this token it lets you into this community. I think that's the value that you're getting out of that there. And I thought that was such a fascinating idea to just have a direct connection with your customer. But it only works if you have if you have the ability to kind of restrain your own thoughts, because sometimes the user will be like, oh, this excuse my language, but they'll be like, oh, this is shit. Right? You just spent 2 months of development and this is garbage, right? This is horrible. And you have to be able to be like, maybe it is horrible. And I think that with Discord being so instant, and being able to connect with the clients instantly, it's like one of those things like you read it in every startup book. The best that like with Airbnb, they were flying out to their earliest Airbnb hosts. You don't need to do that anymore. You can just throw up a Discord room, and as long as you're humble enough to be like to respect that feedback, usually it's like it takes the hard work out of it. I don't even have to guess anymore. People just tell me what they want, which is
Wow.
kind of cool.
Yeah, and I think that's a cool experience for the users because usually when you're investing or you're looking for tools, it's kind of a lonely experience, I would imagine. And as soon as you can get in there and get feedback and give feedback and actually have a dev team that's responsive, that has to be pretty sticky for people. Do you find people are enjoying it?
Absolutely. I think our number one clients, and you could see it even on the back end analytics, the guys that become Aries evangelists are the people that are in this Discord channel that will make a suggestion like, hey, I want to be able to name my watch list, right? And then so we work on an agile way. So maybe 2 or 3 days later, they're seeing that they're able to name their watch list. That's like a spark, right? It's like, damn, I
Mm-hmm.
did that. Other people are now able to name their watch list because I made that suggestion. And I think that has been like it just creates these people that love the product. And at the same time, it kind of kills two birds with one stone because my competitors are you have to think like Robinhood, Webull, right? These massive companies, they're spending $500,000 to $1 million a month in ads. I can't afford to spend $1 million a month in ads, but we're growing at 30-40% a month for this entire year because you create this sort of one-on-one connection, and then when people really love what you're doing, not to speak for the users, I don't know whether they love it or not, but when people like what you're doing and they're getting this sort of instant feedback, we've seen a direct correlation to them referring their friends, and it's like organic, which is cool.
Yeah, I think user experience is hard. You need to hire a big team of people to do it, and you do lots of testing and things like that. It seems like you've kind of hacked it, where you're just getting the user to tell you what they want. Do you think that's going to spread? Do you think other industries or other tech firms will kind of follow your lead and do this type of user experience, rapid iteration?
It's hard, right? So it's really hard to develop as quickly as my team is able to develop. Like really, they're doing all the work, right? They make me look like the guy that, like it's not it at all. I mean, we have developers that are really passionate about the project, and because they're able to iterate so quickly based on feedback, it makes us look, like we're doing a really bang up job. And I'm just not sure that in other industries that are, when you become a legacy company, or
Mm,
it's really hard to kind of like move quickly, right? Like
yeah.
any commercial. So I think that startups for sure, we're going to see a more direct communication with early clients, and I think that that's going to change industries because startups end up disrupting industries. I'm just not sure that if in I'm just not sure that established bands in other industries would be able to implement the same things because in order to do it, you got to move fast, right?
Right.
In order to move fast, you can't be established.
Yeah.
Just one of
Well,
those
if I
things.
and it's demotivating if you try to do it and then you ask to be able to name your watch list and then 2 years later they release that functionality, you're it's that's way too slow, right? And so you
Yeah.
almost have the opposite effect of discouraging people from participating.
Yeah, and you also have to you have to just with a legacy company, things are typically going towards business, or they're there's like
Mm,
there's this hierarchy. For us, it's because like I'm in this Discord chat and the developers are in this Discord chat later, like every key person, it makes it so that there's no loss in the chain of command. It's not like we told the development team we wanted this and they deliver something different. It's more like the development team is actually talking to a user and they're coming to me and telling me like, Reda, the roadmap needs to be changed because this guy wants this and that seems like a higher severity. So it's just one of those things that I'm sure it's not scalable. I'm sure it's because it's like opening a Pandora's box when you ask people like, oh, what do you like and what you don't like. I'm sure at some point it's going to be way too much. But
mm.
for now, I would say our early success can be attributed 100% to those people in the Discord channel.
Right, but maybe if it slows down and you can't be 100% getting your dev team connected to your customers in a year or two, the product might be where it needs to be at that point and be really fun to use and really effective. Do you think your users are going to outperform your customers because they're able to tell you what they need?
Well, I mean, I had an idea a couple of weeks ago, and it's something that we talked about. We have a lot of similar companies, you can call them competitors, that will sell their users' data to a hedge
Mm,
fund, for example, right? So it's not the
yeah.
individual users' data that matters. Obviously, it's the collective, because it's like, okay, if you own 20% of the retail market and 10% of your users are buying this, that's valuable information. What
Yes.
I would like to see happen, and I'm not even sure if this is a possibility, I'm I'm a big believer in like human capital. I'm willing to bet that eventually somebody will come up with a strategy that beats the S&P 500 if you give them the proper amount of, the proper tools and the proper time to do it. And I'm wondering how cool it would be if you could sort of have an ETF that tracks the 10 like the top 10 Aries customers or whatever, not the top 10% of Aries customers, and then other customers could invest in that ETF. And I'm not sure if that idea is even viable, but I'm willing, like, just because I had that idea, I guess it makes me biased towards, like, yeah, of course I believe that they're
I see. So
going to be successful.
you're thinking about flipping the model instead of taking the value out of your customers' data. You're thinking about giving it back to them, and the tool maybe enables some of your users to be successful, and then you can follow on with your other users. And instead of selling that off to some hedge fund, you give it back to the community.
Well, exactly, right? Like, we see with other companies that are really successful. Let's talk about like Ethereum, for example. The reason Ethereum is so successful is because they have this ecosystem of developers that can build on top of Ethereum. There's no middleman. There's like nothing. There's nothing stopping them.
Hmm.
It's like it's decentralized. Even though I don't like the core of that word because it's like a buzzword. But there's no ecosystem like that exists right now in modern finance. And I would like to see what would happen if you gave people like the proper APIs and the proper access to tools and the proper community to actually build on top. Like, obviously, you're not going to build on top of the stock market, but perhaps there is a way where you can, build strategies, share strategies, stuff like that. And I'm willing to bet that eventually that community can outperform the S&P 500.
Yeah, I love that idea, and I love that you're trying and giving your users a shot. Whereas if you weren't trying, everybody else just left out spending 15% of their budget on data, and they're
Exactly.
yeah.
I tell that I say that all the time, right? I think that obviously, like, we live in probably one of the most capitalistic countries in the world. Like, this is definitely an endeavor where it's like, okay, we want to make money, but at the same time, like, how empowering would it be to the regular person if you could. I don't think that in order to like make money you have to cheat people or like or sell something that people don't need. I think that Aries can grow in a way that's conducive to like the average investor. And whether we decide to democratize data or not, somebody eventually will. So we might as well try, right?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So you talked about this 30% growth figure. You're getting users referring people in. What kind of users are you looking for? Are these people that are more sophisticated? I mean, if you're trading options contracts on futures, I can't even claim to understand that. Like, are you looking for more sophisticated retail traders that understand the value of free data, or are you trying to hit a broader audience?
This was a challenge that we spent a lot of time thinking about. You'll notice on our platforms, if you ever decide to make an account or take a look through our just our web apps, you'll notice that it scales with the customer. So you can go all the way from like a line graph to like a chart with 50 indicators. That's just one example, right? The idea is that right now I feel like investors, especially retail investors, have to have multiple brokerage accounts. Like, you might need thinkorswim to do some research, and but you'd like to do your trading on Robinhood because it's so clean looking. What we're trying to do is merge those a little bit, where it's like, if you want a lot of data, you can customize it to the point that it has a lot of data. If you want that Robinhood look and feel, then of course, that's what our platforms ship with natively. So the idea is like something that grows with the investor. Right now, I think we have a
Mm.
healthy mix of people who are just getting started, all the way to people that are really sophisticated investors.
Interesting. So you want traders at any level who are kind of sick of getting scammed, but are either just getting started, need something simple, and they don't want to be uh, with a company that makes their money off payment for order flow, and all the way up through. These are very sophisticated folks that understand the more complex trades, and it doesn't matter
Yeah,
because your platform will take them all the way through.
exactly, right. I think going back to that ecosystem example that I was talking about a few minutes ago, I think like an ecosystem doesn't work if it's only advanced and or only novice. I think that
Mm.
like if we go back to cryptocurrency for a second, there are people that are building the smart contracts, and there's people that are buying NFTs with the smart contracts. Like, there needs to be this healthy mix. Otherwise it doesn't grow.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. And can you just talk a little bit about the most requested features? Like, what are people asking for right now? I mean, naming the watch list makes sense to me. But like, what's the community uh, chomping at the bit for?
Okay, I'll be honest. What they want to see, so the what used to be the most requested feature was a way to share your profit and loss with other people. We've since
Hmm,
released that. The
cool.
second most requested feature is people want a chart that shows their gains over time and their losses over time, so that they can take screenshots and post it on like Wall Street Bets or whatever, right?
Okay,
Um,
yeah,
that those are
cool.
so I know that might not be the answer that you were looking for, right? Because but that's definitely what have been the most requested so far. Both of which I'm happy to say that we launched the profit and loss social cards about a week ago, and the P&L data we're working on right now. So
It's like
those have been the most.
it's like Batman. It might not be the answer I was looking for, but it's the answer I deserve. Like people, human beings are human beings, right?
Dude, I think it's so cool, right? Like you have you have these other firms or you have these other guys or competitors in the space that will try to shy away from this. Like,
Hmm,
yeah, people are using our apps to take screenshots and share it with their friends. It's like, why, right? Like, if that's what people
right.
want to do, who am I to tell you like what to do with your money? I think that that's the most ridiculous thing in the world. I think it's cool. Like everything else is social. Why not investing?
Yeah, I guess I
Yeah.
completely agree. Do you think that's speaking to a trend like that, there's a lot more people now, like that you wouldn't have 10 years ago or 20 years ago, a trader wouldn't have been like, I'm going to go out and post on my Instagram my portfolio, like they're working off a Bloomberg terminal, a big firm. If people are asking for that and they want to share, that means there's communities of retail traders that aren't working for like a big investment bank. And that seems to be a big change, right?
Yeah, I think the data is actually quite staggering if you take a look at the amount that retail investing, like options weren't even that popular prior to the real estate, I mean the retail investing boom. And like even today, there's over just today, think about this on Friday, September 16th, 2022, there's over $3.5 trillion worth of options that are going to expire. Most of them worthless, right?
Mm,
And if you think about that number is so staggering. 10 years ago, it was probably 50 times less, right?
mm,
But what's even crazier is if you take a look at the average amount that people will hold a stock for, like it went from a week to 3 days, right, over the
mm.
last like 10 years. And I think that that kind of data is just with the internet and with instant access to information, this space is only going to change over time. Like if you open up, I don't know if you have a TikTok account or an Instagram account or whatever, you can find people talking about like compound interest and investing in the S&P 500, like like 15-year-old kids. That's never happened before, right? And that in itself is going to make a drastic change in the U.S. markets, I think.
Wow. Yeah, it's a fun try to think about, and you kind of blew my mind a little bit with the way you're approaching rapid development on Discord, and the whole idea that the data should be included so that folks don't have to spend 15% of their investment on data to even get started. Those are all huge changing world changing ideas, and I loved hearing about them. It was awesome having you on the show, Reda. I really appreciate talking to you.
Yeah, thanks so much, man. I appreciate this too.